Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman Rock Force. In the last part we finished off the first set of Fusion Robot Masters, and now after taking out Shockman as my last Robot Master instead of Fuseman, we have our second set of Fusion Robot Masters, starting off with Thrillman. And I hope you guys like gimmicks, because you're going to be finding a lot of those here. Ah, look who's here. I have a special gift just for you. Isn't it simply marvelous? Though I wouldn't let it touch anything dangerous. If its eyes reach zero, well, let's just say I hope to meet you in one piece. Alright, the gimmick of this stage is the very obvious Mega Man head directly above us. In its eyes is a number, 6, to start. If it gets hit 6 times and the eyes reach 0, you die. Additionally, it follows you wherever you go directly above you. However, whenever you press the B button and release it, the releasing in particular is what's important here, it hovers up a little bit. So we need to finagle this thing around various platforms to make sure it doesn't get hit at least 6 times. It's going to get hit at least once, because this stage is intentionally designed to be kind of hard with it. And you know what? I gotta admit, it's annoying, but I appreciate the experimentalism, because not many of the mainline Mega Man game stages would ever get like this. This is the kind of stuff you mostly see only in fan works. Either way, as for Thrillman's bio, once a thriving stunt robot, Thrillman was larger than life. However, in the cutthroat world of entertainment, the king of thrills was eventually overshadowed by a rising star, Nitro Man. After Nitro Man cleared a whopping 32 buses in his motorcycle form, Thrillman attempted his own treacherous jump and failed miserably at it. After this event, many of his company sponsors pulled out, and his creators, not seeing the purpose of sinking any more money into a has-been robot, scheduled him to be scrapped. It is said he began acting a bit strange days before his scheduled termination. Not gonna lie, I half expected that to say he died horribly in the jump. Because given the trend that these things have been going for so far, yeah. One thing I can say is things like Phantom Flare are going to get a good bit of use. Oh, there's my controls bugging out, making the jump button the slide button for some reason. At stages like this, things like Phantom Flare are going to get a good bit of use just because it'll help you take out enemies that much more quickly. Though, depending on your playstyle, and if you're going Buster only, which if you are, I've done it too, but I don't recommend it. Buster only runs are something I used to be a bit more prevalent at in Mega Man just because I almost always had this mentality of I shouldn't use special weapons in stages because who knows, I might need it for a boss fight. And again, I think I mentioned this before in this very LP even. That I think holds true for boss rush stages and maybe even castle stages. But the main 8, there's really no reason not to unless it's the weakness of the boss and you know it has low ammo. I'm looking at you, Flash Stopper. Making Quick Man stage really hard to do, but worth it just to make that boss easier. Although I should stress, Quick Man's only really hard if you're trying to Buster only, not get hit by him. Otherwise, he's active, but not impossible. The latter half of the stage, as should be, is probably where they get the most dickish with the placements of the spikes, and by dickish I mean they pull a couple of traps in this stage, which, for something that has instant death like this, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like, it's one thing for instant death traps like the spike falls that Mega Man is oh so known for, or even just the standard gotcha traps like in the pits, the enemies that knock you back, because at least the knockback has a chance of saving you. But for that, I'm not entirely sure. Either way, we're at the boss himself, and Nitro Man, well, I'll ask you a question. You guys ever seen Speed? Because, we're in Speed now. Thrillman's fight is entirely on top of this train. He's weak to Circuit Breaker, by the way. His one attack, he can shoot down 3 projectiles that go in a reverse arc like that. He'll eventually look behind him, and you're going to need to keep an eye on the right-hand side of the screen when he does so, because some projectiles will come out of the side, and you need to slide under them, otherwise you're going to get massively hurt for damage. And I think otherwise he could just try to punch you? Not a very complex fight, I have to admit. Robot Master-wise, I think he's weak to Nitro Man. Yeah, because his bio even mentioned that. And now it's time for Warman. This is probably my least favorite stage out of this set of 4, because here's our gimmick. The big enemies that were green and targeted you before are now your friends. You shoot them and they start following you. Whenever they start a jump, they'll go try and land wherever the closest they can to wherever you were when they started the jump. and you need them to press down those big blue switches in the background. It starts off easy, as it should, for Mega Man design gimmick, but they're gonna get a bit dickish later on. You really need to learn that the timing is whenever they take off is when they're going to move to wherever you were. As for Warman's bio, king of the biggest war game simulator, Warman was the robotic opponent pitted against a human competitor in a high-stakes game. Though humans could choose to lead robotic armies against each other, they often choose to battle Warman himself simply for the prestige. However, Warman was so effective at winning that customers accused him and his creators of cheating. Though investigations proved that no foul play was at hand, frustrated customers refused to return, and the company eventually went out of business. Before having his IC chip removed, Warman made a chilling remark: "Today I die an empty champion. One day I will return to face a worthy opponent." And wow. That is, Additionally, another gimmick that this stage has going on is that over certain sections, there's going to be some of those vultures from one of the earlier stages. I think it's actually supposed to be warplanes, but I can't get a good look at them when I'm playing the game, at least. They're going to be dropping barrages of those skull bombs like it's a goddamn bombing. And you need to make sure that you don't get hit by those. Though the big and important thing, honestly, isn't making sure you get hit by those, but make sure your little blue buddy doesn't. Because the blue guy does have health. And it's relatively low compared to yours. Like, a single bomb or two is enough to take him out. And if you lose him, he respawns all the way at the right, but that means you have to go all the way back to the right. Same thing happens if he falls down a pit. Just go back down to the right, he'll be there again. And if you fall down a pit, well, that's just a death. There's nothing much you can do about that. Honestly, I think another part that makes this stage not as interesting to me is that when the gimmick isn't there, the level design just seems a bit blander in comparison to the other three stages in this set of 4. Because this is the closest thing to a mainline Mega Man gimmick out of these 4 bosses. Because I could legitimately see Capcom doing something like this for maybe like a challenge mission. Whereas the other ones, I doubt Capcom would ever do outside of, like, really weird toned stages or even maybe DLC stuff. I'm trying to think, what's probably the most outlandish gimmick a Mega Man game has done in the mainline classic games? 11 had some fairly out there ones. I guess something from Mega Man and Base or 8? Maybe? Either way, Beat is very useful in this particular stage, just because taking out the Sniper Joes that spawn ahead of you, when you remember to jump at least, Beat makes that very easy, since you can just shoot and they're taken care of. You do see me hesitating quite a bit in this stage, though, just because I don't trust my luck when it comes to the robots jumping, being fast enough to the point where I can avoid the vulture. No, that's definitely a plane. But either way, the stage is done. Now it's time for Warman. He is weak to the Crypt Cloak, so get that out. And Warman, aside from reminding me a lot of King Knight from Shovel Knight just from the intro alone, is interesting. He slowly walks across the floor and stops right in front of you. His shield will block your normal shots. You're supposed to only be able to hit him when he's attacking you, essentially. And as for his main attacks, he has a sword swipe that I think gets a bit faster on higher difficulties. And whenever he gets damaged, he jumps to the opposite extreme of the room. Oh yeah, the sword also has a high and low shockwave, which I think is what you really need to watch out for. But occasionally he does try to do a dive attack on you about 3 or 4 times in a row. However, that makes him very open to attack, as you can see there. Probably the easiest boss out of the set of 4, but easily the least interesting stage to me. Also, I will take more stuff. Stuff. But not the stuff. That's a B-horror movie from the 80s that is entertaining and has really good practical effects, but is not a very good movie beyond that. Either way, now it's time for Thermo Man. If you can't tell by the lava on screen, this stage has a fire gimmick. Additionally, initially, there's these fireballs just gonna be bouncing all over the place, and they are the only things from my knowledge that can take out the green blocks we need to get rid of to progress. However, what I'm not sure of is if there's a way to destroy them, because there are certain cases where they seem otherwise unavoidable. If there is a way to destroy them and I'm just not aware of it, please let me know that in the comments, because right here, what am I supposed to do against this one? Crypt Cloak, maybe? I don't know. Either way, as for Thermo Man's bio, Thermo Man was a walking thermos tasked with gathering volcanic material for volcanologists. Unfortunately, his creators didn't provide him with a sufficient cooling mechanic for the vital systems located in his head, which resulted in him feeling perpetually feverish. One day after collecting a fresh lava sample, he was overwhelmed by the heat and, not thinking clearly, decided to remove his head to cool down. He was in the lab when he did this, consequently setting the research station ablaze and destroying much of the new research. He was scrapped only a few days after this incident. That seems like a serious design flaw that even OVA Robotnik would look at as like, holy shit, really? Also, I feel very uncomfortable walking on top of tongues. I felt that way in Ocarina of Time, and I still feel that way now. Again, this stage, despite being more gimmicky, I suppose, still is fairly standard for Mega Man stuff. In fact, honestly, even though I said Warman was the most standard, its gimmick was still outlandish enough outside of it. This is probably the most straightforward stage in total. Though I do like this mini-boss. It's going to fire forward a couple different projectile sets. The white things, you're going to want to just step between them wherever there's a gap. And this red cross, I think you can shoot it yourself, but I just prefer to avoid it. And just jump over it whenever it tries to home in on you. I think it goes for that a total of 3 or 4 times. And then it will split off in an X pattern, so make sure you jump over it. I am now made instantly uncomfortable by this room. We got a bunch of teeth to avoid. And since they're spiky, yes, they are counted as spikes. If you have the Mega Man 2 or Mega Man 1 difficulty on, they will kill you in one shot. So make sure you don't. Thankfully, they do move up and down with a good enough consistency and speed where you don't end up staying in one place for too long, while also having a sense of urgency to get around stuff. When it comes to the weapons in this game, I mentioned before that both the Circuit Breaker and the Power Fuse are absurdly powerful, and they are. But what it should come down to as well is what you're more comfortable with using if you want to use something very powerful. Because the Power Fuse, the Phantom Fuse rather, it's powerful as hell. But it also has very low ammo. Whereas the Circuit Breaker has similar power, but a lot of ammo. The big trade-off is that the Phantom Fuse pierces defenses due to its wide explosion radius, while the Circuit Breaker does not. Circuit Breaker also has the added kickback or benefit of going both directions, but let's be real, you're only using it for one of those directions usually anyway. I think the only time that's really used in 2 directions is never. Now that I think about it. I think there's also a degree of randomness in this stage, because sometimes the fireballs will get blocked by the tongues, sometimes they won't. It all depends on cycles and timers and such, depending on when you get here. Because I think the tongues are on a universal timer, but don't quote me on that. And I know on my test playthrough this stage, that took longer to get rid of. Either way, now it's time for Thermo Man himself. He is weak to the Phantom Fuse, and if you're going for the Rock Force weaknesses, he is weak to Bomb Man, I believe. I think it's just in general weak to explosions. He can dash across the room, anything from Mega Man X3. He can throw his head in the air and cause bits of fire to fly out of his body, and probably the most interesting attack out of his kit is that he can jump into the lava fall in the background, causing some fireballs to spew out when he gets out of there. And then he'll try to generally head to above you, in which case he'll spew out, try to land on you, while also generating more fireballs for you to dodge. A surprisingly fast-paced fight, but if you have your weakness and his weakness with you, in terms of ammunition at least, and you know what you're doing, he shouldn't be too bad. But now, it's time for my favorite stage. Definitely on this set of 4, and maybe in the game? I don't know. Portman stage is really cool. Before we get too into it, though, the first gimmick of this stage is actually introduced right here. These blue guys will activate those blocks. Keep that in mind, because you're going to need to do that a lot. Getting into Portman, not much is known about him, as he was a reclusive type and he fully appreciated anonymity. It's said that he was built to help debug new systems for large corporations, and was universally compatible with their machines. His ability to digitize allowed him to interact with and manipulate code in ways that most debuggers could only dream of. However, sorting through so much information eventually unveiled some rather questionable and downright illegal practices from his clientele. Eventually, Portman blew the whistle on several corrupt corporations and, once his identity was discovered, paid the price for it. Goddamn! Dude was assassinated. Holy shit. I love this dude's riding style. It's so Mega Man X for Mega Man Classic. I love it. I guess it's more Zero, but you know what I mean. Mega Man got this dark in the background a while ago, but seeing it in the classic game is just weird. In that last screen, we had the secondary gimmick for the stage revealed. The blue targets that you can shoot to move around. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to realize I could shoot them because I'm stupid. And now we're in the background like we're in a DOS-era exploration game. While you're like this, you can't get damaged by anything in the foreground. It's only things in these sections that can hurt you. However, spikes in this still count as spikes, so be careful. You can't use special weapons at all, too, from what I'm aware. I think everything just acts as a Mega Buster pellet. You can definitely charge your gun, but I don't think it actually charges. I think it's just the sound effect playing. Would you believe that's happened to me? Every time I played this stage, because I rush forward like a maniac. Very rarely do I realize, unless it's happened to me before, that I should not jump down the stairs. However, in Portman stage, I always tend to embody a certain internet meme about World of Warcraft and the dude rushing in, and I can't tell why. Also, a very important thing we can learn here, the weird blue reticles can go into the DOS-era background, and God, that just looks so cool. This is so inventive. Fans, when they're doing the right stuff, they're doing the right stuff. Mind you, not to say Capcom's not done cool gimmicks in the past, but they're rarely this creative. Also, that was my controls bugging out again. Stop holding left. This is the only game it happens in. I'm not sure why it happens. Unless it's supposed to be like that whole Nintendo, you should take a break. It's been over an hour thing that was in basically every first-party 3DS game, I think? Sounds about right. No Link Between Worlds. I'll take a break when I feel like it, but thank you for offering all the same, because I know you're just watching out for me. This room always takes me at least 2 tries. What we have to do here is guide that reticle over to the blue dot as usual, but you need to actually head through the room first and set it up to go through, because otherwise these platforms aren't going to be here. And when the reticle misses and falls down, I don't think there's a way to get it back up there without leaving the room and re-entering. There might be a way to destroy it I'm just not aware of, and if there is, please tell me about it. But if there's not, you just have to go back. You need to backtrack a couple times just to make the blue guys respawn, because otherwise, you're not making it through. I appreciate that this developer realized, you know, shit, I did a dump. I appreciate this developer realized that you could potentially use the whole Mega Man respawn illness, as I like to call it, on the enemies to your advantage for once. Because whenever people play Mega Man, especially for first timers, it's always one of the things they bring up about how annoying it is. Enemies respawn the moment you leave the screen. I'm used to it, but I can definitely see that complaint. But it's always just fun to see someone use something like that that's been in the series since the start, but never really thought of it to be used like that. That's just really cool. Good on you, Goldwater. Though, I suppose there's always been some amount of the way that you could use the enemy respawn to your advantage, not just for farming stuff. Because there are those instances where you can use the edge of the screen to also despawn enemies. I'm looking in particular at the little electric generators in Sparkman stage in 3, because you can very easily despawn them if you keep them right at the edge of the screen and then move while they're moving. Oh, I know I can make that jump, but it makes me uncomfortable every time. I don't like jumps like that, but I know I can do them. I don't care much for you, Sniper Joe. Get out of my face. Need to respawn that dude. And I believe with this, we're going to be at the end of the stage. Portman is not only my favorite stage out of this set of 4, but he's easily my favorite boss. He's going to jump around the 5 platforms on the bottom of the screen and have them do their attack. On the left is 3 bullets in a row. The left is one that cycles around. The far right is that. The one to the mid-right left is the one that circles around. The mid-right is a shockwave that goes over across the entire thing. Just think Crypt Cloak. In the middle is just 2 waves. Towards the last bit of his health, he's going to drain up these 2 platforms, and you need to battle in the DOS style. With this, he's just going to be moving around and firing a couple different volleys of bullets. Plus shapes, cross shapes, and I think on hard mode, he fires in all 8 directions. Maybe all the time, sometimes, I forget exactly. Either way, this fight's just really cool and a really fun gimmick. Again, this stage is just incredible. And with that, that's all 8 Fusion Robot Masters taken care of. So with that, we're also going to be going back to the main save file next part that I first bought the first 4 in, just so we could take on Deathman on my proper save file. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6, we're going to be doing that and seeing what happens after that. See you guys then.